Yes, now, District 6 challenger to incumbent Democrat Linwood Lewis, Republican Richard Ottinger. Now, this is the seat that Linwood beat Wayne Coleman in the special election. I guess it was January of 2014 by 12 votes. So this is a very competitive district. Richard, we know, has been working hard. Richard Ottinger, good to have you with us, man.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Doing fantastic. That was a pretty big lead-in for you, Richard. But this is one of those swing districts that, last time when Coleman ran, everybody had written him off. Everybody thought it was going to be a blowout. I mean, I saw Saslaw 10 days out. I remember that at some event, and he told me that Lewis was up by 19, that it was over, and I thought he meant 19 percentage points. I didn't know he meant 19 votes. This is a very competitive district. How are you going to win?
John, I'm going to win because we have run an incredibly disciplined, hard-working grassroots campaign. We have knocked literally thousands and thousands of doors. I personally have knocked thousands of doors. I've talked to the voters of Virginia on their doorsteps. I know exactly what is on their mind and what their concerns are. And I'm going to do everything I can to bring it to Richmond.
So, one of the issues is, you look at your campaign and where you're from, and a lot of pundits have said to me, well, I think Richard's going to do better in Norfolk than meets the eye because he's got a big network there. He's a lawyer there. That's where he lives, etc. But Coleman's secret in almost knocking Lois off is he did exceptionally well on the Eastern Shore. How are you playing there?
Very well. We followed Wayne's playbook to a T on the Eastern Shore. I've spent days, probably weeks in Accomack and Northampton County. We started up there back in January and February, meeting everybody we possibly could. And again, we followed Wayne's playbook to a T, meeting everybody we can, talking to voters, and getting the message out. And that's what it takes on the Eastern Shore. You can't buy your way into an election win on the Eastern Shore with TV or radio or even good old-fashioned name ID. It's got to be meeting the voters one-on-one.
Now, when you're out there knocking on doors, talking to people, Richard, what are they saying globally, nationally about or just the economy? What's a common theme on the Eastern Shore when you're talking to people? What are they saying in their homes?
The number one issue across the entire district is the economy and jobs. Everybody understands that the economy in Southampton roads and even up onto the shore is driven in large measure by Department of Defense dollars. Just a fact of life. Unfortunately, those dollars are going to be shrinking. Everybody knows it. They're never coming back. So people are looking for alternatives. Where do we turn? What do we do? And the answer is we have to leverage what we've got. We have one of the best ports in the world here. It is a fantastic economic generator, provides tens of thousands of jobs, millions and millions of dollars of economic input, and we've got to leverage it. We've got to protect it, we've got to expand it, and we've got to take advantage of it. In crisscrossing the district, I've had the opportunity to meet all kinds of folks, see all kinds of businesses. And one of the most impressive stories I've run across is Bayshore Concrete in Cape Charles. Unfortunately, Northampton County is economically fairly depressed. One of the highlights is Bayshore. They went from 30-plus employees 4 or 5 years ago. Now they have over 400. And what they're doing is they are building sections of the Bayonne and Tappan Zee bridges, which are headed up to New York. It's great for us now. It's great for Cape Charles. It's great for Northampton County. Unfortunately, what they're doing is they're helping New York, New Jersey compete with the Port of Hampton roads. They're raising those bridges so they can handle the same ships that our port can handle right now. So we cannot rest on our laurels. We've got to stay at work. We've got to stay focused.
So if you were to win and go to the state Senate, go into Richmond in January, obviously the Republicans are in control now. Your victory would seal the deal. There'd be no math where the Republicans don't maintain control. If you were in the state Senate in this special session that just went on, would you have voted for the Republican candidate Chief Justice Alston for Supreme Court of Virginia, or would you have voted for the justice that Terry McAuliffe had put in with the backing of the head of the House Judiciary Committee? What would Richard Ottinger have done?
I got to tell you, I was not happy at all with how McAuliffe handled it. I was shocked and surprised that the Virginian pilot came out and wagged its finger at McAuliffe for the way he proceeded. I got to tell you, I like Judge Roush an awful lot. I know her personally. She is one of the best judges in the state. I don't know the judge that the Republicans are pushing. I got to tell you, I believe that I would have voted for Judge Roush. I mean, she's one heck of a judge, and I think we're losing somebody special if we don't keep her on the court. Okay,
I appreciate that. So if you were there, like Watkins, who was retiring, you would have voted for Roush. What bothered me about it, and you're obviously in that set, you're an attorney. What bothered me about it is if I got a recommendation, if I'm the governor's staff, if I'm his chief of staff, and I get a recommendation from the head of the Republican Judiciary Committee recommending a judge for a vacant seat, I mean, wouldn't you just kind of make the assumption? I mean, maybe you should have picked up the phone, but wouldn't you make the assumption that Republican leadership, at least in the House, thought it was a good idea because you've got your Judiciary Chairman, Dave Albo, backing her, right?
That's right. But you hit the nail on the head, though, when you said all he had to do was pick up the phone. All he had to do was pick up the phone, talk to the Speaker of the House, the leader in the Senate, and run it past them. That's all he had to do, and he thinks that he is above that. 2 phone calls, the whole problem would have been resolved. But he doesn't. He doesn't feel like the rules apply to him.
Well, that seems to be a common theme with anybody that has anything to do with the Clintons. But look, I'm just a believer in dialogue. As you know, Richard, I talk to people on both sides of the aisle every day, and you just pick up the phone. And, people that don't want to have a dialogue with me, I'm always suspect because let's just have a conversation. We don't have to agree. We don't have to throw stones at each other. But let's have a dialogue because everything starts with that, right? I mean,
exactly
everything
right.
starts with a conversation like you and I are having now, and I appreciate your candor that you would have voted for Roush. I appreciate that. And look, my criticism of Senate leadership is before they put Alston forward, they should have been sure they had 21. They did not. Now, Richard Ottinger with us. He is candidate for State Senate District 6. That is going to be decided in the November election. And that's what? November what?
November 3rd.
November 3. I got to get that straight. November 3. And the 6th district represented right now by Democrat incumbent Linwood Lewis, who lives on the Eastern Shore, and that's all of the Eastern Shore and parts of Norfolk, and I think 1 or 2 precincts in Virginia Beach, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And Matthews County.
And Matthews, I always forget that. And Matthews County, and of course that also includes Tangier Island. Let's get to the status of the General Assembly right now. In your mind, as a legal scholar, is the General Assembly in session or not?
I believe it is. I do not believe that the Senate Democrats have the ability to break the session without the House. They simply can't do it. It's unprecedented. That is not in my wheelhouse as a lawyer, but based on everything I've read, seen, and heard, I believe that they are still in session.
So if you were in the state Senate right now, you would be going forward as if you were in session. Now, when the Democrats voted to adjourn, basically what they said is waste of time. We're not going to get anything done. The Republicans haven't presented a map for the redistricting. Even if they did, McAuliffe's going to veto it. You can't override the veto. So why spend the taxpayers' money? Why go through a charade like I think we're doing right now in Congress with Iran? Why go through the charade? Let's just let the court settle it, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to happen anyway. What say you?
Well, I go back to our conversation about a discussion. Why not sit down and have the discussion? Why write it off from the get-go and say, we can't do it. It's out of our hands. We can't get together with the other side. I think that's throwing in the towel way too early.
Now, let's get to transportation. The governor yesterday saying, finally, it looks like we're going to get a 64 road widening on the peninsula in the Newport News Hampton area. Anybody that drives from South Side or the Eastern Shore, anything to Richmond, has to put up with that every day. You excited about that? Do you think, finally, Southeastern Virginia or Central Virginia is going to get some of these dollars?
Absolutely. That was the point of the transportation package. Nobody likes a tax increase, but everybody in Hampton Roads knows that we need those projects. Widening of 64 has been needed for 20-plus years, if not longer. We need a third crossing or Patriots Crossing. We need to look at the high-rise bridge. All those things are choking the area economically. We've got to do something about it, and this is a good first step. I'm really excited about this.
Now, if you were to get elected to the state Senate, Richard, give our listeners some of your three top priorities. What would a Senator Ottinger get done January till the end of April 2016?
Well, first and foremost, I would focus on the economy and jobs. And how do you do that? Again, focusing on the port. We've got to make sure that dredging happens to 55 feet, inbound and outbound traffic, so that we can continue to be competitive. We've got to focus on finishing the development of the Virginia International Gateway, which is the formerly named APM terminals. And we've got to keep an eye on Craney Island. We've just got to keep those on the table. I also want to focus on education. The schools in Norfolk are subpar, to say the least. You can get a great education in the public schools here, but you've got to walk a very fine line. Only 17 of the 44 schools in the system are fully accredited. We got to change that. And how do you do that? Number one, we've got to pull away from the SOLs. They have become the be-all and end-all litmus test. And unfortunately, what happens is the teachers teach to that test. They teach memorization. They don't teach critical thinking. We've got to move away from that. They took a little step away from the frequency of those tests in last session. We need to keep on that path. We also need to make sure that dollars get into the classroom where the rubber hits the road. We've got to make sure that the teachers are well compensated. We've got to make sure that they have the resources in hand to be able to teach the kids as best they can. So those are my top priorities in the upcoming session.
Okay, so why is Richard Ottinger a better choice than incumbent Linwood Lewis? What are you going to do differently?
Well, first, I'm not a career politician. He's been up there 12 years. He's accomplished virtually nothing other than having raised taxes and fees over 115 times. He's voted down the party line since he's been in the Senate. He's completely out of touch. I am none of those things. I'm absolutely in touch with the voters in the district from one end to the other. I am not a career politician. I've got a full-time job. I've got a great family. I just want to go up and make a difference. I'm going to stand up and do what's right. I'm really excited about the opportunity to make a difference.
All right, we've got 2 minutes. We're with Republican State Senate candidate Richard Ottinger, 6th District, running against incumbent Linwood Lewis. That'll be decided in the election on November 3. Richard, let's get to Medicaid expansion. Are you for or opposed? I'm
opposed. Medicaid in Virginia, as it stands right now, makes up over 20% of our annual budget. It's over $8 billion of spending a year, and that spending's increasing at over 8% a year, 8% a year. And to double down on a system that is dysfunctional, that discourages doctors from participating, that doesn't provide the needed services where they're really needed, to me is just bad government. We've got to find a better way. There is a better way with a private system. I just don't like the idea of getting attached to a huge new entitlement program that everybody agrees is going to be the state's responsibility once the federal government dollars start decreasing, which they inevitably will. And once that happens, we're on the hook. As you know, John, the Commonwealth of Virginia cannot exceed its budget. It's got to stay within the budget. It can't print dollars for the federal government. And this is nothing but an entitlement handoff from the federal government to the Commonwealth. We can't afford it. Dollars in the future to cover these Medicaid expenses will have to come from somewhere else, which means education, means public safety. Those are the programs that are going to be cut. And I think that's bad government.
Rural hospitals in Virginia running out of money, decreasing services, closing down. How do you solve that without Medicaid expansion money? Well,
what you need to do is have more efficient delivery of services. You need to focus on, there are 5 particular types of medical problems that make up more than 50% of the cost, and you've got to deliver services there. It's trauma, COPD, cancer, heart. Those are the things that drive most of the dollars. You've got to develop a system that is more efficient, less costly to deliver those services to the folks in the rural areas.
All right, we're out of time. We're going to continue that discussion when we have you on again. We're also going to ask you about some more detail. Good to have you with us, Richard Ottinger. You want more information? Quickly, your website, what is it?
Ottinger, FORVA.com, and Twitter is @OttingerVA.
All right. We want to thank Richard Ottinger for being with us.